Welcome to Dark Testimony. Tonight's story comes from a police officer. He testified that he opened a case file that should never have been touched, and what came out of it tried to take him with it. But before we reach that night, tell me, where are you watching from right now? This is their testimony.
You ever close a case file and feel your gut twisting like you just buried something alive? That's what this one did to me. I stamped it, closed, signed my name at the bottom, and walked out of the precinct, knowing damn well it wasn't over. Cases are supposed to end with answers, with neat little lines connecting suspects and motives. This one, it didn't end. It just went quiet, like a scream cut off mid-breath. It was late autumn when it started, the air damp with that sickly mix of wet leaves and exhaust fumes. I was on my 5th year with the department, a beat cop turned investigator who thought he'd seen his share of ugly. I'd pulled kids out of wrecked cars, found bodies in riverbeds, even stared down a man with a shotgun once. None of it prepared me for what I walked into that night. Dispatch sent me and my partner, Rourke, to an abandoned house. On Ashwood Lane, neighbors complained about screaming, said it came from inside, even though no one had lived there in years. Standard welfare check, maybe some squatters. We rolled up with our headlights cutting through mist, tires crunching wet gravel. The place loomed out of the fog like it had been waiting. Boarded windows, sagging roof, a condemned notice that had rotted to a blank sheet of pulp. I remember the smell before I even got out of the car. Something sour, like copper and mildew, like old pennies left in a wet basement. Rourke wrinkled his nose and muttered, "Jesus, smells like something crawled in and died." He wasn't wrong. We stepped onto the porch, wood groaning under our boots. My flashlight beam jittered across peeling paint, and a door that hung half open like an invitation. I hate that part. The moment before you cross a threshold, when your brain whispers that you could just back away. Radio it in, let someone else deal with it. But I'm a cop. We don't get that luxury. Inside, it was colder than the night air. Dust and damp clung to the walls. My light swept across torn wallpaper and furniture draped in stained sheets. The smell grew stronger. Not just rot, but something acrid, sharp enough to sting the back of my throat. We called out, "Police, anyone here?" And the echo swallowed our voices. Then we heard it. Not a scream this time, but a laugh. Soft, childlike. It floated down from the second floor and froze the marrow in my bones. Rourke's eyes met mine, wide, both of us silently asking if the other had really heard it. We had. We moved up the staircase, careful, each step squealing, like it was trying to warn us away. Dot. My light caught the banister, coated with greasy fingerprints that trailed upward. Fresh, not years old. Someone had been here. At the top, the hallway stretched into darkness. That laugh came again. Closer now, but warped, like a recording played backward. I swear to you, my hand tightened on my gun without me telling it to. We checked the first door, empty bedroom. Second door, another. But when I reached for the third, the knob was warm. Not just room temperature warm, fever hot, like it had been gripped tight by a burning hand. I hesitated, felt the sweat bead at my temples. Rourke whispered, "Open it." So I did. The room beyond looked wrong. Not messy, not broken, just wrong. The walls were bare, stripped to wood and plaster. The floorboards, though, had been carved, not scratched, carved. Dozens of lines, circles, symbols overlapping, until the wood looked like a spider web of wounds. And in the center of it all sat a doll, porcelain, cracked face, one glassy eye missing. Its little dress was soaked dark down the front, stiff with something that had dried years ago. I started to step inside when the door slammed behind us. Not just closed, slammed, rappling the frame. My light flickered, and in that strobe, I swear I saw the doll's head turn. Just a fraction, just enough. The laugh came again, but now it wasn't childlike. It was lower, layered, as if a dozen voices had climbed inside that sound and dragged it down to something inhuman. That's when I knew this wasn't a squatter call. This wasn't a prank. This was something else. Something that should have stayed buried. And God help me, I walked further in. The door wouldn't budge when we tried it. Rourke shouldered it once, twice, but it was like the wood had fused with the frame. He cursed under his breath, sweat breaking across his forehead. I kept my gun drawn, scanning the corners of that stripped room. Every nerve in my body screaming at me that we weren't alone. The doll sat there, blank and cracked, head tilted just enough to make me doubt whether it had moved at all. My flashlight stuttered again, a quick dying pulse before coming back. For a second, the shadows on the walls looked like figures hunched over, watching us. Rourke growled. "Screw this." He raised his boot and stomped down on the doll, porcelain shattering into shards. The sound echoed too loud, like glass in a cathedral, and right after, the room exhaled. That's the only way I can describe it. The air pushed against us, cold and heavy, carrying with it that sour copper stink multiplied tenfold. The symbols carved into the floor seemed darker now, like they'd been freshly gouged instead of old and worn. I bent down against my better judgment and ran my gloved fingers across one of the cuts. The grooves were damp, sticky. It wasn't paint. It wasn't ink. It was blood. Before I could say anything, the boards beneath our feet groaned. Not the kind of groan wood makes under weight, but something deeper, like the house itself was breathing in. Rourke's face drained of color. He muttered, "We're not supposed to be here, man." Then the laugh came again, this time behind us. We spun, lights cutting across the doorway. Empty, but I swear, just past the threshold, I saw a shadow pulling itself back into the hall, like smoke retreating from a flame. Too fast, too deliberate to be a trick of the light. "Radio," I said. My voice came out rough, almost cracked. "Call it in." Rourke unclipped his unit, thumbed the button. Static. Nothing else. He tried again, smacked it against his palm. Still nothing. The house was swallowing the signal. We had to get out. I yanked on the door again, harder this time, but it was like pulling against a steel wall. I thought about the window, but the boards outside had been nailed tight, thick enough that busting through would take time we didn't have. My heart hammered, and with every beat, I felt the room tilt further into something I didn't understand. Then, from the corner, came a sound that will never leave me. A whisper. Not words. Not exactly. More like the suggestion of words, curling through the air like smoke. Both of us froze, listening. It slithered around the edges of the room until it pressed right up against the back of my ear, even though no one was standing there. I felt my skin crawl, my scalp tighten. And then, clear as glass shattering. "Stay." Rourke lost it. He fired. 3 sharp cracks that deafened the small room. My light caught the muzzle flash, and for an instant I saw something in the corner, crouched low, head cocked at an angle too sharp for a human neck. Then it was gone, leaving only splinters in the plaster where his bullets hit. The whispering stopped. The air went still, heavy as a tomb. The door creaked, and neither of us touched it. It just swung wide, hinges screaming, revealing the hole again. Empty, silent. Rourke grabbed my arm. His hand was trembling. Halfway down, something rattled behind us. A slow drag, like nails across wood. Rourke swung his light up the stairs, jaw locked tight. Nothing there, just shadows. But when we hit the ground floor, the front door was gone. Not locked, not blocked, gone. Where it should have been was just more wall, rotted plaster, wallpaper peeling in strips. Rourke swore and slammed his fist against it. Solid, real. The smell of mold and rust rolled off the surface. My stomach dropped. That's when the house changed. The living room furniture wasn't under sheets anymore. It was arranged neatly. as if someone had been living there all along. The old curtains hung clean, a lamp buzzed faintly in the corner. On the coffee table, a glass of water sat half full, beads of condensation dripping down its side. And sitting on the couch, watching us, was a little girl. Pale, dark hair matted to her cheeks, wearing a dress that might once have been white. Her legs dangled off the cushion, bare feet too still. She smiled, but her teeth, God, they were wrong. Too many. She lifted her hand and pointed at me. You shouldn't have come. The glass of water toppled by itself and shattered. The lamp went dark. And the house exhaled again. Her words hit me harder than any gunshot. You shouldn't have come. They were clear, steady, and too calm for a kid sitting in a condemned house. My throat went dry. Rourke lifted his weapon, but I grabbed his wrist. Don't, I muttered. I didn't know why I said it. Some instinct told me bullets weren't going to matter here. The girl's smile didn't falter. Her eyes followed us like a predator, sizing up its prey. Who else is here? I asked. My voice cracked on the last word. She tilted her head, as if trying to figure me out. Then she pointed again, this time toward the hallway that led deeper into the house. Her lips parted, like she was about to speak, but instead a sound poured out of her throat. It wasn't a child's voice. It wasn't even human. It was a deep, layered moan, the kind you feel in your bones before you hear it in your ears. Rourke lost his patience. That's it, he snapped, backing us toward the boarded windows. He raised the butt of his gun and smashed it against the glass. Nothing gave. Not the glass, not the boards. The sound barely carried, as if the house had swallowed it whole. The girl slid off the couch. Her bare feet touched the carpet, and I swear I saw dust ripple outward like water disturbed by a stone. She started walking toward us, slow and deliberate. Stay the hell back, Rourke barked. But she didn't. Her smile widened. I raised my flashlight, the beam catching her face. For just a flicker, her features warped, her mouth stretched too wide, her jaw sagging unnaturally low. Her eyes, nothing but pits of moving shadow. Then, as quick as a blink, she was just a pale little girl again. The panic building in my chest finally broke. No, I hissed at Rourke, and we bolted down the hall she had pointed toward. Stupid, I know. We should have fought to get out. But in that moment, running deeper into the house felt safer than waiting for her to reach us. The hallway stretched farther than it should have. What should have been 20 feet dragged on and on. Each door we passed leading to rooms that didn't match the outside dimensions of the house. A bathroom big enough for a ballroom. A kitchen lined with cabinets that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. And all the while, The house whispered. Not words this time, but the sound of dozens of voices murmuring together, overlapping in a low hum that pressed into my skull. Finally, we reached a door at the end of the hall. It was different. Iron handle, frame reinforced with something that looked like blackened steel. No rot, no peeling paint. It looked new, out of place, like it had been installed yesterday. Rourke hesitated. "We're not," but the door swung open before he finished. The room beyond was pitch black, darker than anything my flashlight could cut through. The beam just seemed to die in it. I stepped 1 foot over the threshold, and the smell hit me again. Copper, rot, mildew, but thicker now, suffocating. And then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from the darkness, moving closer. The sound of bare feet slapping against wood, wet and deliberate. My chest locked tight, breath caught between inhale and scream. "Who's there?" I forced out, though every fiber of me didn't want an answer. The footsteps stopped just beyond the edge of the light. Then, slowly, a hand reached forward, pale. Elongated fingers, nails dark and jagged, too long, too sharp. It curled around the frame of the door, like it was feeling its way into our world. Rourke fired again, 3 shots into the dark. The muzzle flash lit up the doorway for a split second, and in that blink, I saw a face. Not the little girl's, not even human. Hollow sockets where eyes should be. Skin stretched too tight over bone. A mouth that was nothing but a gash, splitting its face wide. Then the darkness swallowed it again. The sound of breathing filled the hall. Deep, wet, ragged breaths, like something ancient was forcing air through ruined lungs. "Back up," I muttered, tugging Rourke's arm. But before we could retreat, the door slammed shut. The whispers cut off. The hall went dead silent. We spun, flashlights jerking around. Empty. The girl was gone. The furniture, the glass of water, the lamp, gone. The house looked like it had when we first entered, rotting, ruined, empty. For a moment I thought maybe it was some kind of hallucination, some trick of adrenaline and fear. But then I noticed the floorboards at our feet, the same symbols carved upstairs, were burned into the wood beneath us, black and smoldering, like they'd just been branded there. And in the center of them lay something small, something new, a tooth still wet with blood. I stared at that tooth like it was a live grenade. Fresh blood slicked the enamel, bright against the charred wood. My stomach rolled. Teeth don't just appear, Not in places like this. Not dripping wet when there wasn't a body to bleed. Rourke bent down, hesitated, then picked it up with his gloved fingers. "It's human," he muttered, voice low, as if admitting it. Any louder would make things worse. He slipped it into an evidence bag from his pocket, the plastic crinkling too loud in the silence. That's when I noticed the hum. At first, I thought it was just my own pulse hounding in my ears, but no, it was the walls. A low vibration radiating through the boards, rattling faint picture frames, making the nails in the beams squeal. The house wasn't still anymore. It was breathing. "We're done here," Rourke said, jaw set tight. "We get out. We call backup. We torch this place if we have to." I wanted to agree. God, I did. But the hall behind us didn't look right anymore. The wallpaper wasn't rotted and curling. It was clean, fresh, the kind of pastel yellow you'd find in a child's bedroom. I blinked, and it flickered back to decay. And then we heard it. Footsteps. Upstairs again. Pacing. Slow, steady, deliberate. Rourke pointed his flashlight toward the staircase, uttering curses under his breath. "No one's supposed to be here." The boards above creaked, one after another, in a rhythm that didn't feel random. It was like something wanted us to follow, and damn us both, we did. The staircase screamed under our weight, each step echoing too loud in the suffocating silence. My hand brushed the banister, and I pulled it back fast. Sticky, warm. I lifted my light and froze. It wasn't wood I touched. It was flesh. The railing wasn't a railing anymore. At least, not all of it. Long, endless, lined with doors on both sides. Each one was painted a different color. Red, green, blue, white. Some had numbers etched into the wood. Some had names. And every single one hummed, the vibration stronger the closer we got. The first door we passed had a name carved into it. Carter. The second, Nguyen. The third, Dawson. I knew those names. Every cop in the precinct did. They were victims. Missing persons. Cases we never solved. Rourke's face went white. What the hell is this place? I didn't answer. My throat locked up. I just kept moving, scanning the names. Each one hit me harder than the last. People I'd seen on posters. People whose families I'd interviewed, promising we'd bring them home. At the end of the hall, one door was different. Black. No name, no number, just black paint so thick it seemed to swallow the light. The hum was deafening here. My teeth rattled, my vision blurred at the edges. I should have walked away. I should have pulled Rourke back and found another way out. But something in me, The same thing that keeps every cop digging when a case already smells like death, made me reach for that handle. The second I touched it, the air dropped, freezing. My breath plumed white. Rourke whispered, "Don't open it, man. Please." His voice shook, and that scared me more than the door itself. I'd never heard him beg, but I pulled anyway. The door swung open onto a room I wish I could scrub from my memory. It wasn't large, but it felt endless. The walls were lined with shelves, and on each shelf were jars. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Some held teeth. Some held hair. Others, eyes, floating in murky liquid, staring blankly from their glass prisons. The smell hit next. Formaldehyde and rot, sharp enough to make my eyes water. And in the center of the room was a table. On it lay a body, or what was left of one. The skin peeled back, ribs cracked open like a butcher's display, organs gone, the chest cavity stuffed instead with dolls, porcelain, plastic, fabric, all jammed inside, their little faces staring out of torn flesh. I gagged. Rourke swore and stumbled back against the shelves, knocking over a jar. It shattered, spilling a dozen pale fingers across the floor like dice. That's when the lights came on. Not our flashlights. Overhead bulbs, humming, yellow, bright enough to make the room too real. And standing in the far corner was the little girl. Only now she wasn't little. Her limbs were too long, her shoulders bent forward, her head cocked at that sharp, impossible angle. Her smile was wider than any human mouth should stretch. She didn't move. She just watched, waiting. Rourke whispered, "We need to leave." But the black door slammed shut behind us, sealing us in with her. The door clanged shut like a vault ceiling, metal on metal, final and absolute. I spun, yanking at the handle until the skin on my knuckles split, but it didn't move. It didn't even rattle. Behind me, Rourke's breathing grew frantic. Harsh gasps that filled the jar-lined room, like he was sucking all the air out of it. And then, we both froze. The girl moved. Not a step, not a gesture, just her head, twitching from side to side in sharp, snapping jerks, like a puppet with strings pulled by some unseen hand. The bulbs above us flickered with every movement. Rourke lifted his weapon. "Stay the hell back," she giggled. Not the sound of a child, not even close. It was layered again, voices on top of voices, like a choir laughing in unison. My guts clenched. My instincts screamed, but I couldn't look away. The giggling stretched into a scream, not loud, quiet, low, like air being forced through torn vocal cords. She began to walk, slow, each step scraping her bare feet across the floor. Her arms hung too long, fingertips dragging the boards, leaving faint trails like chalk. The shelves rattled. Jars shook. One toppled, bursting across the floor, spilling cloudy liquid and a pale hand that twitched once before going still. "Shoot her!" I barked. My voice was raw. Rourke fired. The shots cracked the air, deafening in the tight room. I saw the rounds hit her. 3, 4, 5 shots, her body jolting backward with each impact. She didn't fall. She didn't bleed. She just smiled wider. I'll never forget what she did next. She lifted her hand, palm out, as if mimicking Rourke's aim, and then his gun ripped itself from his grip. Not drifted, not floated, ripped. It flew from his hands like it had been yanked by an invisible hook and clattered against the far wall. Rourke staggered back, hands raised. "No, no, no," his voice cracked. The girl tilted her head again, studying him like he was an insect pinned to a board. Then, in that same layered voice, she whispered, "Stay." He froze, not because he wanted to, because he couldn't move. His muscles locked, shoulders trembling, veins in his neck bulging as he strained. His eyes darted to mine, wide and pleading. I rushed him, tried to drag him away, but his body was solid, stiff as stone. And then, nothing. My hands slipped against his jacket. "Fight it!" I yelled, spittle flying. The girl walked closer, slow and steady. The jars shook harder. One after another fell, smashing, spilling, eyes, teeth, bones across the floor, until the boards were slick with rot and glass. When she reached Rourke, she touched his chest with one single fingertip. His scream tore through the room, his body arched, eyes rolling white, blood gushing from his nose and ears. I grabbed his arm, but the second I did, I felt it too. Something hot and electric, crawling under my skin like fire ants. It wasn't just pain, it was an intrusion, like something was rooting around inside me, peeling open my mind, rifling through memories I'd buried deep. I ripped my hand away, stumbling back. My flashlight clattered to the floor, beam spinning wild across the shelves. For just an instant, I swear, I saw faces pressed against the glass jars, faces I recognized, victims from the missing persons board. Their eyes blinked, their mouths opened in silent screams, and then the girl whispered again, "Mine." Rourke's body went limp, shattered, plunging the room into near darkness. My flashlight, the only glow. The girl hissed, a sound that rattled the shelves, and for the first time, she staggered back. That was my chance. I grabbed Rourke under the arms and dragged him toward the black door. It was still locked, still seamless, but I didn't care. I rammed my shoulder against it, again and again, wood splintering, steel groaning.
Behind us, I heard her coming.
Not walking this time, crawling.
Fast, too fast. Nails scraping the floor. Her breaths ragged and wet. On the third hit, the door gave. It didn't open. It dissolved. The black surface rippled like water. And suddenly, Rourke and I were through, spilling into another hallway that shouldn't exist. The door vanished behind us. I gasped for breath, chest on fire.
Rourke groaned faintly, barely conscious, blood dripping from his ears, and the hall we lay in. Every inch of the walls, the ceiling, the floor was lined with teeth. Human teeth, jammed into plaster, embedded in wood, gleaming wet in the faint light. And somewhere in the dark, the laugh started again. I don't know how long I lay there, staring at those walls of teeth, the light from my fallen flashlight trembling across them like a heartbeat.
The hallway seemed endless, stretching into black both ways. Each tooth glistened as if freshly pulled. Roots slick, some still smeared with flecks of red. Every so often, one would twitch, just a tiny jerk. I could still remember the mouth it came from. Rourke groaned beside me. He was pale, lips cracked, a smear of blood trailing from his ear to his collar. His eyes fluttered open. Where are we? His voice was ragged, like every word cut him on the way out.
I didn't answer because I didn't know. This wasn't the house anymore. Not really. The air was wrong. Thicker, heavier, humming with the same vibration that had followed us since the beginning. My gut told me we hadn't escaped through that black door. We'd gone deeper. We can't stay here, I muttered, dragging him up. His legs barely worked, his weight sagging against me as we stumbled forward. Each step crunched faintly, not wood, not plaster, teeth breaking under our boots. The whispering started again, first soft, then louder, filling the space until I couldn't tell if it was in the air or in my head. Dozens of voices, hundreds, overlapping, weaving in and out of each other. I caught fragments, names, pleas, sobs. Some spoke my name. I gritted my teeth and pressed forward. The hall bent, curved, spiraled in ways that made no architectural sense. My flashlight dimmed, theme flickering weaker with every turn, until the dark was pressing tight around us. And then, ahead, I saw a door. A simple wooden door, painted white. The only normal thing we'd seen in hours. "Come on," I whispered, half to Rourke, half to myself. We reached it, and I pushed it open without thinking. Inside was my living room. I froze in the doorway, throat dry. The same sagging couch, the same crooked picture frames. The mug I'd left on the coffee table that morning. It smelled right too. Coffee, dust, a hint of gun oil. But the air wasn't warm. It was ice. Rourke sagged against me, muttering, "What the hell is this?" I stepped in, dragging him with me. The carpet muffled under my boots. The exact same stain from a spilled beer years ago, darkening the fibers. It was my home, only not. Because sitting in my recliner was a man who looked exactly like me. Same uniform, same face, same tired eyes. He sat with his hands folded in his lap, watching us with a calmness that made my stomach twist. "Put him down," he said, nodding toward Rourke. His voice was my voice. "You can't carry him much farther." I staggered back, hitting the doorframe. "What the hell is this?" He smiled faintly, like He'd been waiting for me to ask. "Closure. Isn't that what you wanted? Every case closed. Every answer tied neat. No more missing. No more wondering. That's what the house does. It keeps everything." Rourke stirred, mumbling, "Don't listen," before slipping back into unconsciousness. I shook my head. "You're not me." The other me leaned forward. His eyes, my eyes, were wrong. Too dark, too deep, like the sockets stretched further back than a skull should allow. "I'm what you'll become if you don't let go." The walls around us groaned. The family photos on my shelves warped. The faces inside stretching into screams. My own face, twisted and split. My flashlight flickered out completely. The only light came from behind the copy of me, faint, pulsing, red. "Give him to me," the thing said, gesturing to Rourke. Its smile widened until the skin at the corners cracked. "I'll keep him. I'll keep you. No more chasing shadows. No more unanswered doors. Just stay." That word again. Stay. I backed toward the door, hauling Rourke with me. My shoulder hit the frame, but when I reached back, the hole was gone. Just wall. Just plaster, lined with faintly gleaming teeth. I was trapped. The thing stood, rising from my chair with movements too fluid, too deliberate. Skin rippled like something beneath was wearing it too tight. "You've already crossed over. There's no precinct anymore. No streets, no city. Just this, just me." The floor sagged beneath us, groaning, and when I looked down, it wasn't carpet anymore. It was gums, pink, wet gums, studded with rows of teeth, flexing as if the whole house was one giant mouth. I lost it then. I screamed, hoarse, raw, yanking Rourke tighter against me.
my face, laughed, and then it said something I'll never forget, because it felt like it had been waiting years just to whisper it to me. You'll close this case when I say you can. The floor heaved under us like a living thing, gums swelling and contracting, teeth clicking faintly as if they wanted to rise and bite. I dragged Rourke away from the shifting patches, but every step sank deeper, my boots sticking as if saliva
Slept the ground. The thing wearing my face followed, its gait smooth, unhurried, like it knew I had nowhere to go. "Stop running," it said, my voice rolling through the room like thunder. "You're only feeding it." "Shut up," I barked, more desperation than defiance. Rourke stirred weakly against me, his eyes cracked open, bloodshot and glassy. "Don't let it take you," he rasped. The thing tilted its head, and the grin split wider. "He's mine already," he pointed at Rourke. "So are you." I pulled my sidearm, the weight familiar, grounding. My hand shook, but I aimed at its chest and fired. The shot roared, echoing through the warped version of my living room. The bullet hit, the impact snapping its body back. Then it straightened, hole closing over, as if nothing touched it. It chuckled. My chuckle. That was when I realized it wasn't just mimicking my face. It was learning me. Every twitch, every thought. It knew me. "You can't shoot away what you are," it whispered, stepping closer. The walls around us pulsed, photos stretching into screams again, eyes weeping blood. The coffee mug on the table split in half, jagged ceramic teeth biting into each other. The house wasn't just alive, it was complicit. I staggered back until my spine hit something solid. Dot. It wasn't the wall, it was another door. I don't know how I missed it before. Maybe it wasn't there until now. Black wood, iron handle. The hum behind it stronger than anything I'd felt yet, vibrating through my ribs, rattling my teeth. The copy of me froze when I touched the handle. Its smile faltered for the first time. "That's not your door," it hissed. I gritted my teeth. "Then it's the only one I want." The handle seared my palm, hot as a stove burner, but I yanked it open anyway. What lay beyond wasn't a room. It was a stairwell, narrow, steep, spiraling down into a darkness that breathed cold air up into my face. I hauled Rourke forward, nearly falling as I dragged him over the threshold. The thing lunged, its body snapping toward me like a whip. But the second the door shut behind us, its voice cut off. The stairwell swallowed us whole. We descended, each step groaning like it was miles long. The walls dripped with something warm and sticky that smeared my shoulder when I brushed against it. I kept the flashlight low, beam trembling. Carvings lined the stone. Names again, hundreds of them, etched deep into the walls. I recognized some. Victims, officers, people I thought had been lost,
forever.
And then, carved fresh, still glistening, my name. I stopped cold, stomach twisting. The letters were deep, raw, like someone had gouged them in only moments before. My name waiting for me. Rourke moaned, half conscious, his head lolling against my shoulder. "Don't look," he slurred. "Don't read it." The stairwell ended in a cavernous chamber, lit faintly by something glowing at the center. At first, I thought it was fire. Then I realized it was hundreds of lanterns, all burning with a pale, unnatural light, hanging from hooks that dangled from the ceiling like meat. And below them was a pit. I edged closer, breath shallow, the heat of the lanterns drying my eyes. The pit wasn't just a hole, it was alive. A churning mass of limbs, faces, torsos, all tangled together in an endless, writhing knot. Mouths opened and closed, screaming soundlessly, eyes rolling in terror. People. Dozens, hundreds, all packed together, clawing at each other, sinking back into the pit whenever they reached the edge. The missing. Every last one of them. Rourke stirred, his eyes opening wider now, his face drained of color. He saw it too. His breath hitched, a sob catching in his throat. Oh God. From the pit rose a sound, deeper than the whispers, heavier than the laughter.
A voice that wasn't one voice, but many. Layered, booming, stretching into every corner of the chamber. You found us. I staggered back, shaking my head. This isn't real. The voices all screamed at once. Not words, just pain. The sound drilled into my skull, vibrating down to my bones. I clapped my hands to my ears, but it didn't matter. The screams came from inside.
And then, slowly, a figure began to pull itself up from the pit. Taller than any man, body stitched from the writhing pieces of the others. Arms too long, jaw split open into a cavern of teeth. Its eyes were hollow, yet burning with something that wasn't fire. It looked straight at me. "You brought the case here," it said, voices crawling through each syllable. "And here, nothing is ever closed." Rourke screamed. The lanterns flickered out, one by one, until only the glow from the pit lit the chamber, and the thing kept rising, towering, blotting out everything but its voice and the endless gnashing teeth of the pit below. I don't remember dropping Rourke, but suddenly he wasn't in my arms anymore. He slid to the ground, pale and trembling, while I stood frozen before the thing that had crawled from the pit. It wasn't just a monster. It was a ledger made flesh, an account of every missing soul. Its skin rippled with faces, each one screaming silently before sinking back into the mass. The smell hit next, rot mixed with copper and something sweet like spoiled fruit. My stomach lurched. The creature leaned down, its cavernous mouth opening wider than its chest should allow. A chorus of voices poured out, words forming from the tangled throats of the damned. And then, nothing. You wrote their endings. You filed them away, but you never closed them. I realized then it wasn't talking about the victims. It was talking about me. About every report I had typed. Every case stamped unsolved. The files I put back into cabinets, telling myself I'd circle back when I had time. Each one was here, unfinished, festering, remembered. No, I whispered. My voice cracked. I tried, God, I tried. The monster stretched higher, ribs splitting open, revealing a cavity filled with more twitching forms. Some were children, some wore uniforms like mine. All stared with milky eyes that rolled in unison toward me. Rourke clawed at my boot weakly, his voice a ragged gasp. Close it, Miller. You have to close it. Close what? I barked. But even as I said it, I knew. And then, nothing. The case. The file. The names blurred, ink bleeding as if alive. I couldn't read them, but I didn't need to. They weren't words, they were wounds. The chamber shook violently. Lanterns burst above us, spraying glass that rained like shrapnel. The pit roared, arms clawing desperately at the edges. I took a pen from my pocket. Its barrel cracked from the fall, ink smudged along my palm. My hand moved on its own, scratching into the paper. Not neat, not official. Just one word, scrawled hard enough to rip through the page. Closed. The reaction was immediate. The pit convulsed, every body inside arching back as if struck by lightning. The monster above us shrieked, not in pain, but in rage. Its body split open further, light searing through the cracks, blinding, white hot. The sound tore the air apart, a wail so loud it drowned even my own thoughts. I grabbed Rog, dragging him back toward the stairwell, though I wasn't sure it was even still there. The floor split open behind us, teeth snapping from the cracks. The folder in my hand burned, flames licking the edges, but I clutched it tighter. We reached the stairwell, only it wasn't stone anymore. It was wood, splintered, leading upward into the faint outline of a door. My front door. Go, I screamed, shoving Rourke ahead of me. He stumbled up, nearly collapsing, but somehow managed to claw his way to the top. I followed, lungs searing, legs shaking with every step. The monster roared below, arms thrashing, stretching, but they couldn't reach. Not anymore. The door slammed shut behind us, and suddenly, silence. I stood in my house again. Not the warped, twisted version, but my real living room. Dot. The clock ticked steadily. The photos on the wall were still. The air was still thick with dust, but it was real.
Rourke lay on the floor, coughing, alive. His eyes met mine. We didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. I looked down at my hand. The folder was gone. All that remained was the smell of burned paper, faint and acrid, clinging to my skin. I left the house that night, and I never went back. Stop, stop, stop. 5 buys you clan, with care and pride, with death for me, something waiting. All that remained was the smell of burned paper, faint and acrid, clinging to my skin. I left the house that night, and I never went back, without tracing the folder in darkness. The case file disappeared from the system. It was like it had never existed. But I know better. Every time I close my eyes, I see the pit. I hear the voices, and sometimes, when the station is quiet, I swear I can hear the faintest scratching, pens dragging across paper that isn't there, finishing stories I never meant to start. And here's the worst part. Last week, I got a call. Dispatch told me there was a new case. Another missing person. They gave me the name. It was mine. So if you ever hear your name whispered in the dark, don't stop to listen. Don't turn around. Don't wait for me to file it. Just run.